In this new episode, I speak with Dallas McClain. Dallas is the editor-in-chief of an online magazine called BioHackers Update. We discuss what the definition of biohacking is, the importance of it going forward. We touch on a few topics like mindset and nutrition. And I think it's a really good opportunity to learn about some new terms and what it means, ultimately leading towards personal wellness. So take a listen. Would love to get your feedback. Please go to whatever platform you listen to, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts. Please leave a review, subscribe, share. Would appreciate the support. Thanks. And all right, before we jump into the episode, just wanted to share some information about Anchor. It's a great free platform for starting out a podcast. It's what I've been using, and it was a great turnkey solution for me to be able to focus on the primary mission of my podcast and not worry as much about how to get the word out, where to post, things of that nature. Anchors takes care of that for you. They distribute, they set up a platform that is easy to use with lots of tutorials. They give recommendations and coaching on how to even interview on your podcast to get you started. So I would encourage you to look into it, download the free Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Now, on to the episode. Another episode of the Rest and Recovery podcast. Today we have our guest, Dallas McClain, editor of BioHackers Update. Welcome, Dallas.
Hey, Scott. Glad to be here.
I appreciate you taking some time to join me today. So before we get into the Biohackers Update and what it is, and even help us define what biohacker is or biohacking, it's a newer term that's been floating around out there, and I think there's some other terms related to it, but just give us a little background on you and how you became the editor and your interest in biohacking.
Sure, would love to. So I came into the biohacking world just about a year ago. I was actually living in Spain teaching English, and I wasn't making a ton of money or anything, so I was had a lot of free time also because students love to cancel classes sometimes. So I was getting into other things to see if I could make some income, and I came across this ad for a biohacker, or biohacker content writer, I should say, and that drew my interest, and I clicked on it, and later on came to find out what biohacking really was, because I had no idea at the time. and I kind of fell into the world of it, and really only my English background and my human biology background kind of helped me get into the world of it, at least with this company. Okay. And and from there it just grew into editing a lot of articles about biohacking. So I kind of got the basic gist of it by then, and slowly grew from there.
Awesome. So you have you said a biology?
Yeah, I got my undergrad in human biology actually, and later on my wife went to go study in Barcelona, Spain to get her master's, and I went with her. And in order to bring some income in, I took a certificate class to get a TEFLA, which is teaching English as a foreign language, to make some income on the side while we were over there. Okay. And of course, we were traveling and stuff too, but it was a good job to have, flexible job and stuff while she was doing that. So that's kind of my background a little bit.
Yeah, great. It sounds like a great opportunity. You had to travel a little bit to Spain.
Oh man, it was the best, and I'm so glad we did all this before this virus stuff. So
yeah, really. I mean, this scare right now is getting a little real.
Right. Yeah, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. I don't want
to
get too off basis.
Yeah, no, but it dovetails well into biohacking, and the way I understand it would be really just caring for yourself, but being able to individualize that. But why don't you, from your perspective in the Biohackers Update, magazine, how you guys define biohacking, and then we can go into, what is the update?
Of course, yeah. So we kind of see biohacking more as a way to almost hack your body in a way, like a computer hacker hacks into a computer or a program. We hack into our bodies by trying to improve them in some way, and we do this by experimentation techniques. So it can be something as simple as taking a cold shower every day and maybe notating, your mental attitude, or if you feel more awake, or even your body temperature throughout the day, if you want to get more scientific. Or it could also be something as more complex, like altering your DNA in some kind of way or something. There's some people that get really into it. We don't quite go that far, but we do explore the basis of it, and the biohacking techniques from a general to a semi-advanced point of view.
Okay.
With my experience, it's more of a mental thing. I've always been involved in personal development for a few years now, and I've seen the importance of the mental clarity, and that's had an impact on the way that I biohack things.
So kind of mindset perspective.
Exactly.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And so from mindset for your personal, what do you have any particular methods or modalities that you like to use?
Well, to be honest with you, I keep it simple. I've been reading. I try and read every night right before going to bed, and I'll usually read. I make a note to try and read at least 10 pages a night and just reflect on that. And that really lets my thoughts from all the day kind of become quieted a little bit, and just kind of focus on what's really important, especially with the types of books I read. I don't usually invite a lot of things that are unneeded or unwanted into my life and into my reading material. I just kind of read more self-help, positive, uplifting books that really send you to sleep with good thoughts. And I think that's important, especially at that time, because I believe, and I've read a lot of books that say this too, that the subconscious is more susceptible to receiving those thoughts right before bed and right before waking, and that type of thing. So
yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I've seen some articles on that, and I don't remember the details, but they were doing some brain studies and along those lines that it can have a long-term effect on your countenance and how well you rest, which obviously sleep is foundational to wellness in general. And you kind of speak to really the motivation behind the podcast. Why I got started personally was along those lines, with just being able to, quiet the mind a little bit and just get focused on rest and recovery to, ensure I can bring my best self to that next day.
Oh, of course, I think it's really important that you set yourself up for success for the next day.
So Biohackers updates, what is the mission behind?
Well, our mission is to spread the word about biohacking in a way that will bring the biohacking community together, novices and also those that are a little bit more involved, so that we can have kind of a social circle where everyone helps each other and shares what they're trying and shares what works for them, what doesn't work for them. But mainly the main mission, I would say, the main value we stand behind is just getting better every day through different experiments and different methods of hacking your body or hacking your mind, or getting yourself to be the best person you can possibly be.
Yeah, and we're all individuals, both in interest, but also just I always say this: we're all individual walking chemistry sets, and what works for you may not work for me. But at least it's an opportunity to understand what did work for somebody, and learn from that experience and apply it to yourself.
Exactly, I agree.
So, what are some of the key areas that will be focused on within the magazine? And this is online?
Yeah, right now we're focusing mostly on digital magazine and newsletter type stuff.
Okay.
So in terms of categories, we focus on the main ones that stand out in most of our lives: nutrition, fitness, recovery, productivity, technology, all of those types of categories that everyone can relate to. And there's biohacks in all of those different, there's plenty of biohacks in all those different categories. And we like to, explore different biohacks from experts in each of those fields that present what they've seen through patients that they may have or through their own lives that they can really bring to the table and share. And I think having the expert, presents a little bit more validity to our articles. And also it's nice to, see what someone who's really been involved in that area has to say about it.
Sure. So the contributors, some are in the medical field, wellness field, but are others, I'll say like myself, who are more interested and end up making kind of a life practice of doing biohacking or just experimenting with different things to do self-improvement.
Right. And that's exactly what it is. We have people that are actual medical doctors and have practices and stuff. We have psychologists, but we also have, people that are just really interested in that subject and study that subject to the point where they become, pretty knowledgeable in it. And even for those people, we usually try and, have them write a few articles or so, see how it goes, and then get those articles reviewed by experts in the field. If the expert doesn't want to be involved whole-handedly, then they'll just review the article and say, hey, this makes perfect sense, or hey, I'm not sure what this person was talking about here, maybe. So just so that all of our articles can be as valid as possible.
Sure. Understand. Great. So out of those topics you mentioned, and you already talked about mindset for your personal interest, what are some other areas that you're kind of focused on for you as you evolve for yourself, some of the biohacking?
Let's see. And well, like you said, mind is probably the one that I'm most interested in, but if I had to choose some others, fitness and nutrition, I think are very important too, because what we put into our bodies and how and what we do with our bodies really comes back to the why. Why take care of ourselves? Why do this? And it's all because we're trying to get to that better version of ourselves in every category out there. So in my opinion, nutrition and fitness are one of my favorites, just because there's so much choice involved in each thing that we go through every day. And, it's, do I take the subway, or do I, just drive, or do I eat the apple, or do I eat the bar of chocolate? And every choice that we make throughout the day, whether we know it or not, is a hack that's either going to hurt us or help us. And everything in moderation is a good thing to live by. And I think that comes into play a lot in the biohacking realm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every choice has a consequence, good or bad, right? Whether it's the Snickers bar, or the apple. One of the comments you made me think of, you talk about personal productivity, Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you're familiar with that book, he talks about kind of what we're discussing here on the biohacking is 1% better every day. And every time you take an action, you make a vote towards yourself, towards the person that you want to be. Right. So like whoever you talk about fitness, every time you go out for a walk or a run or lift weights, you are an athlete. Even if it's your first step out the door, or you've been doing it for 25 years. And just, that 1% better has been a bit of a personal mantra for me that I borrowed from him.
That's a good point. And it's funny that you mentioned the percentages, because I think Jim Rome and Earl Nightingale and some other positivity speakers talk about the differences in percents, the 95% versus the 5%, and why the 5% separate themselves. And it is just because of these small daily habits, maybe the 1% thing that you're talking about, of how they're getting better each day, but they stay consistent with it. And I read this book that actually got me started reading, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one, but it's a great book about discipline, and it teaches you how to not only keep your head above water, but to keep going and get in the boat and then get on a bigger boat and then get to dry land and then get to land that has, much more resources on it, to keep growing. And what happens in a lot of society is, and a lot of people, is that we keep paddling until we get our head above water, and then we say, oh, okay, I'm okay. And then we start sinking below the water again. And this book mentions the slight edge is just to keep going and don't stop when your head is just above water, to keep swimming and keep going.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor for kind of selling yourself short or having limiting beliefs on what is possible.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
That's a great book. So it was Jeff Olson.
The Slight Edge.
The Slight Edge.
Yes, sir. That's really what got me into reading so much, because for a lot of people that I talk to, it's hard for them to read. And if you just give them a book that's a really deep book, such as like Think and Grow Rich or 3 Magic Words, or these books that are really in depth and really touch on the subconscious and the psychology of things, I tend to find that because they're so big or they're so dense with material that it doesn't last, right? They don't
Right.
have the habit formed yet of reading. But Slight Edge is a great book to start with because it really helps you develop that habit of just committing to read 10 pages a day. 10 pages of a positive book every day will change your life completely.
Yeah, because 10 turns into 20. It's a multiplier effect, and it's definitely something that, it's that simple compounding interest principle, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, and you're just investing in yourself. It's not the financial benefit per se, but it's you and developing. And I can attest that, you look back in time and all of a sudden 5 years go by, or I don't know how many times I've looked at notebooks of ideas I've written down, and it is 3 or 5 years later. And you're like, really? And so, and then you think back at the time, maybe missed that if I had just done those 10 pages or that 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever each day, that all of a sudden you'd be so much further along. But at the time, it seems like this monumental task.
Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right.
So the genesis of the Biohacker update, you're the editor. So how was this founded, and have you guys published? You've published one release so far, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So let's see. We were founded. It's kind of an interesting story. So the founder, Joshka, he was searching for people on, I believe, it's not Angels List, but another site that's called Angels something. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now, but he found some people on there in terms of like an editor, content writers, advertising people, social media experts, all this type of stuff. And then we started out with 10 people. And this was back in May or June. And we were all working like remotely, but having weekly calls and trying to come up with ideas to write about and get everything else orchestrated, right? And we make it to, I come back over to America back in July, because my wife was having a baby, so we wanted to come back to America and all that stuff and get everything set up. But I still wanted to work, and do this on the side because
Right.
I thought it was a cool project. So I stick with it, and we still have the meetings, and we finally get the first issue out. But the founder, he ends up running into a lot of things in his personal life, and he's not able to continue with the company. And this was around October, November, somewhere around there. And by this time, there's only 2 of us left. So it's just me and the content writer / social media marketing guy. And we just decide, hey, you know what? It's a cool side project. Let's stick with it and just see where it goes. If anything, we're learning from our experiences. So we just want to keep it going. And that's kind of where we are today.
Great. Hey, like you said, opportunity knocks. You've another episode of the Rest and Recovery podcast. Today we have our guest, Dallas McClain, editor of BioHackers Update. Welcome, Dallas.
Hey, Scott. Glad to be here.
I appreciate you taking some time to join me today. So before we get into the BioHackers Update and what it is, and even help us define what biohacker is, or biohacking. It's a newer term that's been floating around out there, and I think there's some other terms related to it, but just give us a little background.
Every 2 months, but the rate we're going now, it might be a little slower out of the gate just because it's only 2 of us and we're working with a lot of different writers and trying to get things organized as much as we can, and also bring in advertising and other things to bring in funds. So the way we're looking at it now, it may be a little slower out of the gate, but we would eventually, our goal is to get to 6 issues every year and roughly double that in newsletters every year.
Okay. So startup here.
Yeah.
Up here.
Yeah.
That's part of it. That's entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, it is, man. It's an exciting time. We love it.
Oh, great. So what are you looking at as you investigate biohacking options? And, there, like you said, there's a continuum, and some of the research I've done, there's some things that I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go there, but definitely interesting to hear the results. What's something that's on your radar right now that you're looking to try?
That's a good question. I see so many different things. I recently read this article of a guy in Norway or Sweden, somewhere up there where it's really cold, right? And he would run with just shorts on, no shirt, and he would run like 7 miles, get into the ice, like the ice pools and stuff for like 5 minutes, and then run back to his house. And he said it was the most exhilarating thing ever. And he would do that like 3 or 4 times a week. And I was like, man, that would be crazy to try. I live in Florida. I don't know how that's going to work. But it was a really interesting biohack. And if I ever get the chance, I would love to try that. I saw another guy on Instagram who would do ice baths almost every day in like Canada. And I think his name was like Canada Dad or something on Instagram. And he would just get into the ice bath and have a camera on him, and he would notice, like, I think has said his cholesterol was going down, and like all sorts of different positive things were happening for him. So it was just really cool to see how the effect of like that cold therapy has on your body,
Yeah, I've investigated that. I've kind of in the similar mindset, even though I'm in Northern Virginia and grew up in New Jersey. I'm kind of used to the cold. The idea of, I'm not used to the idea of like a cold shower or just sitting in a bathtub. I mean, I've done endurance sports, so I've taken the ice bath, but it was never one that I looked forward to. But yeah, I've seen similar commentary. I think one person who relates breath as well as breath work with is Wim Hof. You're familiar with him.
Yeah, I am. I've heard of him, actually.
Yeah, and I was watching a video from one of their weekend trips together where you come together, and it's like you were talking about, the medicinal benefit that it has on your body physically, but also from a mindset perspective. Being able to control your breath and control your body.
Right. It comes back to, you're right, exactly. It comes kind of back to how your body can manage and deal with stress. And if you're practicing and getting your body used to dealing with all that stress, especially first thing in the morning, you're really setting yourself up to be like, wow, whatever stress comes my way during this day, I've already dealt with that. So I don't really care. It's going to be fine. I'm going to get through it. It's
exactly.
kind of like a mental pep talk almost in the day.
Yeah. It's definitely something I've looked into, and feel like I should do this as a mental challenge, like 30-day ice bath challenge or something like that.
Yeah, I should too. I used to take some cold showers, but I've been getting away from it. I'd like to get back to doing that because it was quite a feeling in the morning. One other thing I might recommend, since I'm kind of a mind guy, I recently read about this 30-day mental diet. It's from this book called 3 Magic Words by Uell Anderson. Great book, deep book. And he talks about how important it is, right? Because we don't really think thoughts. Thoughts just pop into our mind. Meditation practices, and he says the point of meditation a lot of times is to get to the point where you can see the thoughts lined up. Okay, dismiss, or okay, you're allowed to come in. And he talks about how important it is to really monitor and be a sentinel at your mind's gate, because what happens is if you let those negative thoughts in and then you reflect on those thoughts, they become part of your subconscious and they sink down into you, and they have an effect on you that you don't even know that they're having an effect on you. And this could be years down the road. So he talks about taking a 30-day mental diet and just being so aware, trying to be so aware of any negative thought that enters your mind to just dismiss it. So to kind of heighten your senses almost to the point where you're only focusing on positive thoughts. And I've been doing that, and it's been a game changer.
What was the name of the book again?
It's called 3 Magic Words. It's by Uell Anderson. I'm not sure how to say his first name, but it's spelled Uell.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a great one.
It sounds like a great book. Yeah, I've definitely been. Mindset has been, for me, one of those things that, you have a preconceived notion, I'll say, as to what it is, and you may have some stereotyping of like, things get kind of kooky or something like that. But, it's spot on where your thoughts, it's you are what you eat. We mentioned nutrition, the mental food that you feed yourself. And most of it is I make the joke of the quorum of me, myself, and I, and who's going to win out as in that internal conversation in your mind. And what's the positive or negative, and it will definitely have an impact on your mental state and how you act and respond to circumstances.
That's a good way to put it. And how you act and respond to circumstances is kind of a way of practicing up to the point where you're training yourself not to be fearful of things that usually would make us fearful as human beings, like ghosts of fear, and is the fear of death. Out there with the coronavirus, everyone's panicking, and it's important to be said that I'm not saying don't do anything, where you have to separate yourself from being precautious and being fearful.
Your physical body, and then you become susceptible, and you're almost kind of projecting the very result you don't want, or opening yourself up for that.
Exactly.
Physically and mentally.
That's exactly right.
Well, Dallas, I appreciate the time. It's really interesting conversation, and I've definitely picked up a couple new books. So before we close things out, wanted to. And I think I even touched on one of them. Okay. Is what's your so what are you reading right now?
Okay, so I'm actually gotten into a real estate book right now, because I was trying to see, one of my friends was telling me about it, and it's called My Life in 1,000 Houses, and it talks about this guy, Mitch Stephen, and how he, through the 90s and early 2000s, got to own or have 1,000 houses pass through his hands, and how he made some money on them and got to a point where he was kind of financially independent. And I was just kind of, that's one of those books you just kind of, okay, you know what, I'll try and read it and see where it takes me. And it's a good book, honestly. It talks about a lot of good things, and it's written in a good way.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, if you can glean one or two things from a book, I think it's a W.
Oh yeah, for sure. In terms of like my favorite books, I'm definitely more in like personal development or psychology type books. I could just name a few of my favorites. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is a great classic. Richest Man of Babylon by George S. Clason. And I don't just listen to books or read books. I usually listen to stuff too. Not usually books, but more like motivational speaking, like by Jim Rohn, Earl Nightingale, another guy, an Indian guru yogi type guy is Saj Guru. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
No, not familiar with that one.
He's got some really good. He just sits on stage and people ask him questions, and he just like someone will just ask him like, "How do you not be depressed?" And he'll just go on this long thing of all these different metaphors and everything, but it's really profound. And those are just a few of my favorite books that really I like to read.
Awesome. So what are you listening to right now? Music, podcast?
Not to touch too much on religion right now, but I listen to sometimes on Sirius XM, The Catholic Guy. It's a channel on there, and I'm recently became Catholic not too long ago, and just because I like the faith, and I'll say this while I'm on here, whatever faith you are, that's totally fine. Whatever helps you get closer to that higher power is cool,
Right.
But I listen to that because it kind of combines a little bit of comedy with the way Catholics are, and then also our belief, and with everything going on in the world right now, I like to listen to sometimes that stuff. But the thing my go-to listening things are usually like a quick Jim Rohn speech or Earl Nightingale speech on YouTube. I just play a 20-minute speech on the way to work, and gets me pumped up and ready to start the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. What about you? What do you listen to?
Yeah. I mean, I am definitely Audible is the greatest thing for me. You mentioned earlier about reading and certain meaty things, and I've been getting into definitely more heartier books, some medical books around breathing called the Buteyko Method. And Patrick McEwen, check him out. And there's a number of other people out there. We mentioned Wim Hof already. Another one that I've been listening to, podcasts. I consume a ton of podcasts. So I'll stick with the Audible. The most recent one was Fierce Conversations. And I don't recall the author at the moment. I forget her name, but I'll add it to the show notes. And then I just downloaded Brainwash. That's by David Perlmutter. Impact it has on your brain. Brainwash. Yeah, so that's I think I'm not sure how many Dave Perlmutter's books are out. One is called Grain Brain. I've read that one. And to understanding the why on how I felt. You might find it interesting because it's focused on mental health and mental clarity. But I just downloaded it and haven't started listening, but that's on my docket next. Fierce Conversations with Susan Craig Scott. It was a very, very good book about communication. Especially you mentioned you're married.
I think in one of the things you were just talking about, and you reminded me of a book that really hit me one time when I read it. It was by a famous guy. Well, I don't know if he's famous, but he had a famous video spiel about millennials and all these types of things. And his name is Simon Sinek. You might have heard of him.
Yes. Find your why.
Yeah. Start with why. Exactly. He wrote a book called Start with Why. And that book is really good. Not just if you're in terms of beliefs and
discovery questions and going through those exercises to help determine, where your passion is, right? Where you're going to get your most joy out of it. Not necessarily the most commons out of your paycheck. And then maybe hopefully you can kind of marry the two, right? We all want financial freedom. I think most of us do, but
right.
But yeah, that was definitely a good personal exercise for me. So what is your go-to rest and recovery method?
My rest and recovery method probably is interesting because I like to be active a lot. So to rest, I have to use a lot of energy sometimes. So I'll go for long runs and then come back and throw some essential oils in the shower and just, really get a good steam going. And then I'll just meditate. That's probably one of the best ways to find us. And if you search the web, I'm sure you can find any of us. I also have a blog at gatesofgrowth.com where I review books that have helped my life and changed my life, and I kind of share my story of how I came from a dark place to where I am now. And I'm not necessarily the most perfect human being or anything like that, but I'm always trying to get better, and that's a lot better than where I was back then. So reading and self-help books have done a lot to help that. So, I mean, but back to Biohackers Update, you can find us on the web, find us on Instagram is probably the best place to reach us. You can also email us. Everything should be on our website there as contact info.
Okay, great. Well, Dallas, again, thank you for the time. It's been great having you on. I enjoyed the conversation, and have a great day.
Thank you, Scott, and have a great day as well.
Well, I hope you found that episode of value. Our conversation with Dallas was a good one and provided some good information. What I wanted to also share here is how to find them. You'll find it in the show notes, but wanted to discuss here. Their website is biohackers-update.com, and then you can find them on Instagram, where they share a lot of great information as well, which is biohackers_update. Again, that's on Instagram. Thanks again for listening. Please put a review, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks.